I think taking the opportunities that come to you with respect to networking are important. For example, if you go to a conference, don't hang out with your friends and talk to the people you know, talk to people you don't know. And that has had a huge impact on me, because, as a very young student, I was talking with people who ended up being, major leaders in the field, who I didn't really know who they were, but I was just having these conversations with them anyway. For an introverted person, I'd simply, make sure you practice your talk, get yourself ready with some good, starting sentences, practice it with whomever will listen so that you're ready and you can give a good presentation. Same with a poster or whatever. And then before I went to the conference, if I was an introvert, I would research who's going to be there. I would pick out 3 people only for the entire conference with one question for each of those 3 people. And that's all I would do, and I'd go home happy because I did that.
Well, I think if you find yourselves, if you're not along the corridor from sort of approachable people, I think then you have to be quite energetic. You've got to quite actively hunt down a support network. They can be either intellectual ones or ones more based perhaps on career, more sort of general advice. But it's, as I say, most academics are really open to approaches from other academics. Can I call in and see you? Can I take you for a coffee, and so on?
What I tell my PhD students quite a bit is we have a lot of visitors, for instance, here. I want them to interact with these people. Yeah. I want them to, to just sort of see that even, your most senior professor, they're actually normal people, and you need to look at them as normal people, and you need to indeed ask them the questions, not just about their research and all their great ideas, but you also need to get to know them, and what do they do after work, and what kind of music do they like, what kind of food do they like, you need to, and in that sense, I always felt that was quite important for me, to just sort of see them as someone who is actually just a great person to hang out with, and then in addition to that, you also have they have great ideas, and I really appreciate, when I was a PhD student, I had a supervisor who would very often sort of, when there was another visitor, he would just come at my office door, and he would say, so here I got Professor so-and-so visiting from the US, and Jolanda, you're just going to entertain them for the rest of the afternoon. And with some of them, I don't think I ever connected very well, but with others, these became my collaborators later on.
I was looking at people who are doing really interesting work internationally, and I wrote to them and said I was working on this and I'd found this, and I found their work very interesting, and would ask them a question, or could they send me some reprints. You actually sent reprints by post in those days. And then I really worked at going to international conferences, and that meant saving up my own money, because there were no grants at that time for people to do it. But it was a focus, and it was something that was a high priority. And so I made myself known to people there, and we formed good scientific relationships. That method of working has been one that served us really well,